Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in to Neal Talk, and today we're going to talk a little bit about something that is very interesting to me, especially as we look at how we're doing with the Iran war right at this time. I won't say the Israel and American in Iran. I'll just say the Iran war at this time. And it reminds me, as being a senior, that I remember the days when the early war started in 1973. And I remember that time because my parents had just uh, moved from one place to another. And that was the time when my brother and I, was uh, living in a neighborhood and trying to get to know all the people. And today we're still friends with them, but that was a time that is easy for me to remember because we used to walk down to the store, and for some reason I remember gas prices, and people were complaining about gas going up and innocent rationing and so forth. During the they call it the Yom Kippur War. And that is something that is stuck with me. And nowadays, it sort of reminds me during this time that we're living in that that war only lasted about 3 weeks. And surprisingly, they're talking initially, at least, about this war perhaps lasting for, months. And you wonder what all can happen during that time frame. Well, I know one thing that you can think about and look at is the idea that right now you have so many people here in the U.S. that are leaving the country. They're deciding, even they had decided long before this war started, that they were going to move because they look at the finances at other places because they felt they could be happier, or they could be more relaxed at ease, and some things were a lot cheaper than here in the U.S., where they thought they could have a better life, a more peaceful life. Well, today I want to talk with you a few minutes about the Yom Kippur War and what all that did to the U.S. And so I'm thinking that this may parallel to a small degree of what we may be able to think that will happen here in the U.S. In the next few months, or perhaps the next few years, even as the Yom Kippur War, some of the ramifications of that war is still with us today. The war began in 1973. It was between Egypt and Syria. They launched the attack against Israel, and it was a surprise attack. And it took Israel a little bit of time to get their composure together, to be able to fight Egypt and Syria to get a handle on things. Well, they did that, but as the fighting was taking place, and mainly in Egypt, forces crossed the Suez Canal and the Golan Heights, where Syrian troops moved against the Israel positions. At first, Egypt and Syria made significant advances, catching Israel off guard. But the days passed. Israel recognized the military forces and began pushing back. The conflict lasted about 3 weeks, ending in October. After heavy fighting, the pressure for the ceasefire. Now you might ask, where does Iran fit into all of this? Well, it was during that time frame that Iran was a big part of OPEC. And they mainly started making their money during that time frame because they had a embargo on oil. They were slowing down the production of oil and selling it. But Iran took a different approach. They wanted to make a lot of money, so they continued to pump a lot of oil and sell it on the open market. And they started building, as they say, their coffers. So during that time frame, and since then, Iran has made a lot of money, mainly to China and other countries for U.S. dollars. And with that money, that's one of the things that the U.S. look at them now and it's that they made a lot of their money that they're propping up different proxies around the especially around the Middle East, to fight against other Middle Eastern countries, or mainly Israel. And they're doing it with the monies that, mainly through the money that they received through after the Yom Kippur War. So now we're looking at the idea that they have this, and one of the things that they have done with it, other than give it to the different militias that they've set up around the Middle East to attack Israel and other countries, they use it to buy a lot of drones, cheap drones, build a lot of cheap drones. And with that, they've been able to, now doing the war with the U.S. and Israel attacking them, the cheap drones that have built, they're shooting those, trying to entice the U.S. and Israel into using missiles to hit the drones to stop them from reaching their destinations. And the problem is that these drones are relatively cheap that they made. I say they are guessing about $20,000, whereas the U.S. and Israel are using anti-aircraft missiles, and they're costing, a few $1 million, like $3 or $4 million each. And sometimes Iran is shooting, maybe 100 of these drones into countries, into Israel, or towards military bases that the U.S. have over in Middle East. And they're being able to hit a lot of these drones. But the problem is the cost. The cost is so much that the U.S. is spending a lot. And that is to me, that's gonna hurt the U.S. economy, which in turn help hurt seniors, because everything is gonna go up even more so. Here where I live in the country, basically, gas prices have gone up since last Saturday, about 20 cents a gallon. And that's just during the first week of this thing. It's hard to imagine that. I was reading that during the Yom Kippur War in '73, that gas prices went up basically 4 times. It was, say 30 cents. It went up to over $1 way back in the early 70s. And so now, when this war started, at least around here, gas prices was around $2 and about $2.59 a gallon. And so it's hard to imagine that gas can go up around here to $5-6 a gallon. I would say, praise the Lord, I'm not having to go to work every day and every morning, because when I was working, I was driving probably 30 miles to work, thinking, stopping, get me a cup of coffee, and then going to lunch. Now I look at that, and I thought I was spending, a little bit of money. And I compare that to what it could be now. It would be trouble to figure out how I'm going to pay, $4 or $5 a gallon for fuel. And then lunch, maybe easily $15 for a lunch or $10 for a sandwich. And that's one of the things that now I look at, I say, well, perhaps I better start learning to make sandwiches even here, instead of thinking of perhaps from time to time going out to eat. Because things are going to get expensive. If we compare this to the Yom Kippur War of 1973, things are going to get tough. And I pray that it don't. Because being on a fixed income, we can't afford for prices to skyrocket. If you found anything interesting by what I said, I ask that you share and subscribe to my channel, to this video. Thank you for tuning in to Neal Talk today. Have a good evening.